Welcome back to the show, and allow me to remind you that we are here live. The phone number's on the screen. It will be during the entire show, 321-282-1055. If you have any questions whatsoever, it won't cost you a penny to call in, ask your questions right now. But one question that I get often is, what are these Miranda rights? You've watched Live PD when it was around, or Cops, and you have the right to remain silent. What does that mean exactly? And how can you use that if you're charged with a crime later to protect yourself? Who better to ask than Rajan Joshi, our favorite criminal defense attorney. Rajan, welcome back. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Doing good.
And so, look, I know a lot about Live PD. I know it's off the air now, but I've learned a lot of my cop stuff from Live PD, and a lot of people aren't going to admit that here in the studio, but they're the same. You know, they learned everything from Live PD or Cops back in the day. You have the right to remain silent. What is that? What does it mean, and how does it protect me?
Well, essentially, the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees a person a right against self-incrimination. Now, when somebody's arrested or stopped by the police, they almost feel like they have an obligation to talk to the police. And a lot of times people will go there and they'll talk, and they feel like it's going to help them. And what the Supreme Court said in the case of Miranda is, no, the police have to tell you when you're in custody that you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And a lot of people don't know they have a right to an attorney. So that right has to be relayed to them. And, you know, if they can't afford one will be appointed. So essentially, the Supreme Court has put a duty on the police to inform citizens of these rights. The police do not need to read the rights in order to make a lawful arrest, but they need to read the rights if they're going to interview someone in custody in order for that interview and confession to be used in court.
So you get stopped, you get pulled over by the police, and they say, okay, step out of the car, we're going to search your car. But they say you're only being detained, you're not being arrested. What is the difference?
Well, the police can detain someone temporarily if they have like reasonable suspicion that they committed a crime. They're not formally under arrest or in custody, but they can't leave. And then as they continue on their investigation, if they develop probable cause to believe this person probably committed a crime, then they can place them in custody and under arrest. At that point, that triggers the rights if they're going to go ahead and start interviewing the suspect.
So let's say I'm hammered, okay, and I get arrested, thrown in the back of the police car. I'm under arrest at that point, I presume, but the officer has not read me my Miranda rights, and I'm so drunk I just start spewing things out, yelling at the cop or whatever in the front seat. I say, I've had 20 beers. Is that now admissible later?
Absolutely, because what Miranda does is it only applies to interrogation. So if the police officer asks you, sir, how many beers have you had? And he didn't read you your rights, and you respond, I had 20. That, you know, if you have a good lawyer, they're going to keep that out. But if you're sitting there saying, I had 20 beers and I don't care and I'm going to drive no matter what, that's all coming in.
Right.
Yikes.
So, I mean, how can Miranda be used then if I'm a criminal defendant? How do you use it when you're representing your criminal clients to help get cases dismissed?
Essentially, first thing I got to look at is, are they in custody? You know, and that's a totality of circumstances. There's no bright line rule to say, you know, if they're in custody. It depends. Would a reasonable person feel free to leave? So I look at the factors: how many police officers there were, what type of confinement the person had. Then I have to look at if they read them their rights and if they continued interviewing them. And, you know, I've gotten cases thrown out where they didn't read them their rights properly. They read almost all their rights, but they forgot to tell them, well, if you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed at no cost. So my client talks, and I'm like, well, he wasn't given Miranda. You know, he was given everything else, but a very important part, so his confession shouldn't be used in court.
Right.
And, you know, it works because what we're doing is we're protecting a person's constitutional rights. We're protecting them. And the Supreme Court has given guidelines for the police, and if they don't follow it, then the punishment is the evidence doesn't come into court.
I think this week was the 53rd anniversary of us landing on the moon, okay? I imagine 53 years ago, every police officer did not have a body cam like it seems like we have now. How has this proliferation of body cameras changed your job and really changed things for criminal defendants?
It's made it actually a lot easier because time and time again, I've read reports, and you know, somehow the reports. And I'm not faulting all police officers. There are some excellent police officers out there. Most are. But I've seen reports, and then I've seen video camera footage, that may have been at a bar or something like that, that is totally contrary. Now with the body cams, it keeps the police accountable. Sure. It keeps them from, crossing the line and covering up. At the same time, sometimes it can be used against the client because the client does react a certain way. It's caught on tape, and it works both ways.
I mean, couldn't you argue that it is? I imagine there are police officers out there that hate it because it shows everything they're doing. But if you're a good police officer, wouldn't you want this to protect yourselves in so many ways, having this body cam on you?
Absolutely, and I would say most police officers are good people. Yeah. They're doing a job, and they find the body cam makes their job easier because they don't whatever they're going to write in their report is already documented and captured on video.
I think their body cam just turn on automatically? Could they just wait?
Essentially, they got to put it on. I've had cases, and it depends on the agency and depends on the technology. I've had cases where officers have forgotten to turn the body cam on, yes, very conveniently. But other times it does just trigger on. I guess it's just depending on the agency and the technology.
And look, if you have been charged with a crime, they say that buying a house is the most important investment of your life. Being charged with a crime is also going to be one of the most important investments of your life, and that's hiring the right criminal defense attorney. Rajan Joshi is at 321-282-1055. If you have questions for us right this second, call us at that phone number. We will answer them immediately as well. It's weird because, again, I think that when you start getting investigated for something, they put you in that room. There's this old saying, good cop, bad cop. That doesn't even apply just in criminal law or in criminal charges whatsoever. Literally, let's play good cop, bad cop. We're not even talking about cops. It's a saying in our lexicon now. It happens in real life, and they will come play good cop with you, and they haven't even charged you with anything yet. They can really somewhat lull you into a friendship with them to get you to talk.
Absolutely, and a lot of people think that talking is going to help them. They think that, maybe if they explain it or they're truthful and they confess to it, that the police will take it easy on them, the prosecutor will take it easy on them, and that's, the one thing, the old saying, the truth will set you free, is the furthest thing in criminal law. The truth usually locks the people up, and what they want is that confession. That's like icing on the cake. That's like a bow and a ribbon on the criminal case, handing it to them, because you've got the confession from the person who did it. They've admitted to it. Now it's harder, if that comes into court, for the person then to get up on the stand and explain things any differently. And sometimes their confession was not voluntarily given. I've gotten confessions thrown out where the police would start these games with them, saying, hey, look, you talk to us, we're not going to do anything. We just want to help you. And they lure these people into a false sense of security, and the person ends up confessing, and all of a sudden, he's locked up, because the police can lie to them. But if they make any promises or make any threats, then and get a confession of that confession is not voluntarily given, and it can be thrown out.
Yeah, and I've seen you get cases dismissed. I mean, pretty significant charges get dismissed and set your clients free, and rightly so. What are some other reasons, though? Because I've seen you get so many cases dismissed. What are some other ways you've gotten criminal cases dismissed?
One particular case I had was when an individual was going in the airport wearing a military outfit, and he wasn't in the military. And it was a crime in Florida to wear a military outfit, imitation of a military outfit, or part of a military outfit.
Really?
Yes. And it was a misdemeanor, and he was going to give the diversion program or get his case dropped. I instead challenged the constitutionality of that statute. I said that statute's unconstitutional. What if a person's wearing a Halloween costume? Is that a crime? What if a person's wearing, their husband's coat because, it's cold outside? Is that a crime? So I argued that it violates the 14th Amendment and the First Amendment, freedom of speech. And the court struck the statute down. It's unconstitutional. They appealed it to the 5th District Court of Appeals, and they upheld it, so it knocked it down for the whole state. So, what it takes looking at every single finite detail. I had another case where these individuals committed a home invasion robbery and shot someone, and they all jumped into a black Mercedes. The person who wasn't shot at the home called and said it was a black Mercedes, from this attempted murder.
Right.
The police stopped the first black Mercedes they saw, surrounded it, found all the evidence, found all the co-defendants, and arrested my client. I mean, everything was there. The gun was there. He was the shooter. But I argued that the police only had the evidence of and this suspicion of a black Mercedes, not a license plate number, not a license plate tag. They didn't know whether it was a 4-door Mercedes, 2-door Mercedes. So all the evidence got suppressed, thrown out, and my client didn't do any prison time at all.
Now, you get a lot of people that come in who are charged with maybe a small misdemeanor. Maybe it's their first time being charged with a crime, and the state will come, you don't really need a lawyer. This is going to be a diversion situation. When really they have no evidence. Even having that diversion on your record can end up messing things up for you later.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to have a lawyer to check everything, to look at what the state has, challenge the evidence, and then determine what is the best interest for the client.
Rajan Joshi, as always, it's a pleasure, buddy.
Thank you.
I know you're going on a little vacation. Enjoy the family.
Thank you.
And if you have been charged with a crime, or you know anyone that's been charged with a crime, or even getting investigated, do yourself a favor. Call Rajan right now, 321-282-1055. When we return, you've been injured in an accident. Where do you go for medical treatment? It's just ahead as Behind the Law continues.